Welcome to another episode of that Grief Relief podcast. I'm Katie, and before I introduce this week's guest, I keep being told off for being a really bad podcaster and not asking you to like and subscribe and review and such. And I've decided I'm now going to do it at the beginning of the episode because it always seems really weird to do it at the end of the episode, especially after the subjects we talk about. So go and like and subscribe and review. Right, I've done that, especially on YouTube, because once I get to 100 subscribers, I can actually change the old URL. Enough about that. Today's guest is joining me from the UK. In fact, I don't even know whereabouts from the UK, but we'll find out. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Hiya, I'm fantastic, thank you. And I'm
Good.
joining you from London.
Oh, you're in London. Whereabouts in London are you?
Northwest London's like Finchley. I don't know if you
Okay.
know
Well,
whereabouts
I,
that is.
I was born in London. I was born in Hammersmith. But
Okay.
I moved out and I lived in Hounslow, but we moved down to Sussex when I was 1, so I don't know it at all, and I'm really rubbish. My family are all kind of like Brentford, Fulham way,
Okay.
so that's West
That's
London,
like,
isn't it?
yeah. More or less, we'll go with that.
And welcome to Geography with Katie and Joe. Joe and I connected on Instagram as well, because Joe is again once another member of the wonderful grief community that is on Instagram. And what I loved about it was, yeah, big up the grief community on Instagram. Joe, I get lovely messages on Instagram about the podcast, but Joe just straight up sent me a voice note. Now that's a bold thing to do, sending an uninvited and unsolicited voice note. Talk me through that.
So I'll tell you why. Because I, like, for some reason, when I have a thought and when something comes to my mind, I can't really write it down. Like, I find that so long and tiresome. So when I have something, I'm like, right, if I'm going to write it down, I'll completely forget. But I might as well just voice note it.
Yeah.
And it's just so much easier. And I do like the sound of my own voice. So that is probably why as well.
Well, there you go. A man after
Yeah.
my own heart. Joe's also a fellow podcaster, so we'll find out all about that. And for regular listeners of the podcast and viewers, of course, sorry, YouTube, my cat Poppy is here and being a nightmare already, so please expect plenty of interruptions. Joe, you started your podcast and your story and your Instagram and everything because sadly you lost your mum. Tell me all about your beautiful mum.
So my mum, Michelle Bellman, we like to call her, well, she was known as the Dancing Queen, after her favourite song. And she was someone who, well, she had an 11-year cancer battle.
Oh
She was
my
first
God,
diagnosed.
11 years.
Yeah, it was pretty manic, to be honest. It was like over such a, it took her all around the world in terms of treatments. But the thing was, she had the mentality. She always had this mentality that she was going to beat cancer, and that cancer was just like a side project. It was something that was just present, but it wasn't like going to define her life. And
Okay.
she inspired so many people in her journey. And even to the point where it was like a week before she passed, and she was in the hospital room, and it was looking very bad. um and she was sending me voice notes like, yeah, you know what, I had a really good dream last night, and I think we're all on the up, like I have a really good feeling about this. And this was like 5 days before she passed. And if for those who do know, when you're coming towards the end of your life with a cancer diagnostic, it does become quite clear. But still, she had this notion that she was almost in control of her destiny. And I think that was amazing. As a son, I learned so much from her. And yeah.
Wowzers. And I mean, 11 years, that's one of the things that and it's an interesting word to use. I'm grateful with my dad's battle with cancer. It was really short. It was like 5 months. I can't imagine what you went through. So how old are you? Give me some timelines. How old were you when she was diagnosed?
So I was 8 when she was diagnosed. She passed when I was 19. Now I'm 21.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's been To be honest, and you know what the weirdest thing when I say that, I feel like those 18 months, 2 years from when she's passed to now, I feel like I've gone through such a transition. I mean, myself and my two siblings as well. I think, going 2 years, when it doesn't seem like a long time, but so
Mm.
much has happened, with COVID and just different life stages. It's quite, remarkable to think what has gone on in such a short spell, but it's like it's quite surreal. And like, with loss in general, it doesn't get easier as time goes on.
Mm, mm.
It might be, and that was, I think, initially a hidden myth I kind of believed. And I thought after a certain period, oh, day 65, and we've got to
Yeah.
that mark, and I'm here, and grief is no more. But that isn't the reality,
No.
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, for sure. How old are so are they brothers, sisters? How old are your siblings?
So I have a sister who I think has just got home from school and can probably hear everything going on right now. She is 15.
Okay.
Um, and I have a brother who is living his best life at the minute in Mexico, who is 19.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Poppy, don't hang on 1 second. Poppy, it's because with my super professional Zoom setup, I've got the laptop on a box. Oh my God, that she's going to try and get in. Hold on. My cat's trying to get in the box that the laptop's on, and it's all going to go really badly wrong.
Poppy.
Sod off, Poppy. Sorry, so your brother's living his best life in Mexico. When did he move to Mexico?
Oh, he didn't move. He's gone traveling.
Ah,
So him and a mate went like 10 days ago or so. And it's like a 2 month travelcation. I don't really know what you call it, but
wow. Like a gap year.
yeah. Yeah, a summer gap year, you could
Very
call it,
nice
yeah.
too. Um, Talk me through if you don't mind, but that's what we're here for. Talk me through the day that she died and what happened.
Um, sure. So, well, I guess it's more so the lead up. I was first sat down by my father, um, who told me, she was going to pass. And
Mm,
when you hear something like that, it's like almost, I want to say, mythical. You don't quite believe what has been said, is
mm,
factual. Yeah, it just seems very, yeah, it seems false, And I heard that, I didn't quite believe it, and then it became quite evident this was the case. And the day she passed, we were at this point, she was quite frail. She was,
mm,
well, not quite frail. She was extremely frail. She lost, like, she wasn't quite there fully, like, mentally. Um, like her vocabulary, her sentences were quite jumbled,
mm, mm,
a bit incoherent. And but the thing was, I've said this story on my podcast, and but the thing that was remarkable was the state she was in. She was in this, this pretty much hours from where she was passing. She was just tired, her eyes were closed. And my brother and I, we came into this room, and we sat either side of her bed. Not really expecting much of a response, almost kind of just a way for us to say goodbye, and that's what we kind of interpreted as. But
yeah.
as we were sitting down, um, she's reached out and like held both our hands, and she wasn't visibly aware of who was there. Like you wouldn't. I wasn't really getting any kind of vocabulary or any kind of conversation. It was just she reached out and almost kind of said, like, this is, through her gesture, it was like, this is, it's going to be okay. Like, we will get through this. And yeah, that was just who she was. She had so much heart, and I think she loved to protect her kids, and
Mm.
that was her way of just protecting us.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And I know what you mean about that gesture. It's just that it's the slightest of hand squeezes, isn't it? And you
Yeah,
just know. And how long
yeah.
then after that did she pass away?
Um, so that was probably about, I don't know, like 10 in the evening. And then my brother and we kind of decided we didn't want to stay in the hospital.
Mm,
You know, just watching her pass, I think that was a bit much for us at the time. So
mm,
we kind of just went home knowing that was probably the last time we were going to see her. And then the weirdest thing was, I'm at home and, I've gone, I went to sleep and, I was a bit upset. Well, I was very upset. I was messaging my mates. I was like, right, this is a bit um, and sure, I probably shouldn't have said that, but
It's fine.
um,
I mean, your mum
yeah,
dying is a bit shit, so
yeah,
I get
yeah.
that. That's fine.
And yeah, so I've just gone to sleep with a really bad kind of mindset. And about 2:33, I've just randomly woken up. And, at the time I was just thinking, my sleep was pretty decent. And I thought it was a bit strange. Because I randomly woke up at like this really specific time. And it was around the same time mum passed. So
No
like as
way.
she passed, it was like somehow my body just knew. Dad came back in the morning. He said, your mum passed at so and so, and I was like looking at the messages I sent to a friend of mine, and it was like the exact same time, which I wasn't someone who was particularly spiritual, you could say, but
Mm,
then you see
mm.
things like that, and you're like, right, something's going on here. So
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, it was a bit much, but yeah, that was like a nice. I don't know. I don't really know if it was a nice gesture. I don't really think it was gesture. It was just more like a, a, a synchronicity between myself and mum. I kind of just knew.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Did that give you some sort of comfort?
Um, I wouldn't say comfort. I think at the time I didn't really know what that was. I think only looking back at it 2 years on now, it's something I guess I can take comfort from. But
Mm,
at the time it was more, um, it was like, at the time I was looking at like, that was just a massive coincidence. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't look at it from like this nice kind of perspective. It was quite a dark, like, like kind of not trying to see the positives in things. And it was more so, yeah, because at the time, you're 19, your mum's just died, and it's like, what am I doing in my life now? Like, I don't know. It was very, I don't want to say comforting. It was just, I think the whole experience is just devastating, I guess.
yeah, no, absolutely. And where were you sort of in your life at this point? At uni? Were you working? Were you close to your dad and your siblings?
Yeah, so I was a uni student, and I still am. And the thing that I found really difficult was being a student. And I think when you're a student, you want to have your best life. You want to get drunk. You want to just do all the things, careless. You get free money to just splash it on whatever, like no responsibilities. And then you have this thing at home that is this massive responsibility. And
Mm,
these two things don't mix well together.
mm,
That it's like mixing pasta with orange juice. Like, it's not a mix. Like, that is nice. And I didn't know, like, I thought uni was the best place for me, after my loss. But then I realized this is not working. Like, this is an unhealthy relationship. I was staying in my room. I was like, if I was going out and drinking, it was like bringing on these like emotions, because I was not no longer like repressing my feelings. I was like, so it was a very difficult place. And then, I kind of was like, right, I do need to defer the year. So I did that, and I came
okay.
back the following year, which obviously COVID happened. So that was
Oh
all in
yeah.
London. That's a
You're never going to
story
leave uni,
from
are you?
no, and it's a running joke because I'm literally going to be the only fresh. No, I'm not a freshman, but I'm gonna. No, I'll
You're going to be
finish
one
it
of those
one day.
mature students.
Yeah,
What you studying?
45. Just
Yeah, yeah. What are you studying at uni?
economics.
Ooh, clever boy. You're that
Do you
meme.
know what?
You're that meme with all the maths in front of you, aren't you? The GIF,
Do
sorry,
you
not
know
the meme.
what? Everyone says that when I say, "Oh, what do you do? What do you study?" I go economics. But do you know what? I can tell you the first thing about economics.
But that's why you're studying it, so you're fine.
Yeah,
That's all right.
exactly. I'm
That's
alright.
what
Yeah.
university's all about.
It's,
And and then the initial reaction then. So you knew it was coming anyway, as you say, when you were upset and went to bed. But when you knew she had actually gone, what the hell went through your mind?
um, initially, I think there was this sense of it actually felt normal, which is weird to say, but it didn't feel like anything different had happened. Like, yes, I was aware that she passed, but like you go, you in life, you go days, weeks without seeing your mum. So like when it initially happened, like it didn't sit with me, like it didn't register any kind of reaction really. I think it
Okay.
was only till later on, where we had the funeral where loads of people came, and there was, I think that's when things really started to take note. Like I don't really remember crying until maybe months after.
Okay.
um and I think it was one of those things where I wasn't initially, and then, that's something I'm sure you have found as well. But speaking about it on a podcast has really just shown me that verbalizing it and really surfacing what you're feeling is just so beneficial. And confronting things which are difficult, so to speak, but it's helpful in so many ways. And
Mm.
when it first happened, when my loss, well, when mum passed, and people were saying, "Oh, how are you doing?" And I think I would respond, "Yeah, I'm all right," getting on with life. But in reality, like I'm like, "No, I'm actually not doing well. Can you please come and help me?" But like I couldn't say that because I guess it might be that male image and being an older brother. And but yeah, it's just one of those things where you kind of learn to tackle it. I mean, do you find that from your podcast where you've found
Well,
it's been
it's a weird
beneficial?
one actually for me, because as of now, so you are officially episode number 30. I actually still haven't told my story. Yeah, there are dribs and drabs that come in, especially because
Yeah,
obviously, I've got a lot of things in common with the guests that I have on my show, but I haven't actually told my story. And then I actually mentioned this the other week, was I did record it with my brother. My brother Russell kind of interviewed me, and I couldn't vocalize it for love nor
really.
money. I couldn't get that. And bearing in mind, that's what I do for a living. Like, I
Yeah,
couldn't, I'd forgotten things, as you know, like your memory's quite blurred with certain
yeah.
things. Some things are like laser sharp. You remember where you were and what you were wearing and that kind of thing. But I just couldn't get my words out. It was an awful podcast. And then I was quite lucky that I didn't set the microphones up to record, so it didn't record. So it's actually quite handy that
Uh,
that happened.
a
But
blessing in disguise.
yeah, a blessing in disguise. But
Yeah, you forgot to
absolutely.
do the microphones.
Oh god, that really awful podcast recording.
What a mistake.
But in terms of like, I mean, absolutely talking to people for sure. And interesting that you've said about the whole, you were almost like screaming inside, no, I'm actually really bad and I need help, but not being able to
Yeah,
ask for it. I know that is that's super common. I know that's one thing that I'm very grateful for, my character, of which I get from my mum and dad, of that I never had an issue like that at all. In fact, even a
yeah.
couple of weeks a couple of weeks ago, I rang my sister-in-law and she was like, "Hi, you're right." 'Cause, I mean, who calls anyone, especially with me? If someone calls me, someone's dead usually. So so I called my sister-in-law. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm having a bad day." And I just cried down the phone to her for a
Yeah,
solid, I don't know, 37 seconds. And then I was absolutely fine. But the whole male thing, and that's been mentioned a lot by both men and women that I've had on the podcast as well. And I guess kind of
yeah.
for you, not putting words into your mouth, but being so young, were you trying to like portray this image? I know you mentioned about being a big brother to your sister, but were you trying to portray this image that like, yeah, I'm totally fine, I'm cool with this in a way?
I think what it was is when you lose someone at such an early age in your life, there aren't too many people you can compare experiences with.
No.
There's not to say that, I mean, from doing what I do, I've realized there are a number of people who experience a loss at a young age, but immediately when that happens, you're like, right, what on earth do I do now? And one of the first things I remember doing was searching on Google. I've gone how to I've literally typed in how to deal with the loss of a parent, or like how do you grieve, or like something like that, because I didn't really know. Not those articles were all a bit rubbish, really. But yeah, it was just one of those things. I don't think I tried to um hide it. I just think I'd never really been shown that, being, you know, sharing your emotions was okay. Like, I guess it was something I shared more in private with my mom, and like I'm quite an emotional person, and we spoke about the things I was going through. And then when I lost that, I was like, I don't really have that, and another figure. Um,
Mm.
and I felt like, because I built this really solid, emotional kind of relationship with her, where I'd talk about just like the anxieties and the commonalities of life, but just things I probably wouldn't share with other people. And then I think it took a while for me to be like, right, this is okay. Like, you can speak, like, if I can speak about it with someone I've never met before over, on a podcast, like, what, there's nothing to be ashamed of having very legitimate emotions,
Yeah. And how was it when you said when you first cried, probably months afterwards? Do you know what triggered that?
Yeah, like, for me, when I get emotional, it's when I look at photos, or when I look at videos, or when I see like, it's weird. I don't get so, like, it was her birthday recently, and I didn't actually feel kind of that emotional. Like, obviously it's a sad day, but the actual day itself, I didn't, there wasn't this deep rooted like sadness, which is weird to say. But then a few days prior, I was on holiday with my girlfriend, and I had a really, really bad dream. My mom was in the dream, and I don't usually dream about her. In fact, very rarely do I.
Mm.
And in this particular dream, it was like I was kind of visiting her on her deathbed almost. And me, my brother, and my sister were like saying like our last goodbyes. And I woke up that morning, I spoke to her, and I kind of just, I was visibly upset. Like, I was crying, not crying, but there were tears. And um, so yeah, it's one of those things where I think if I deeply think about it, and I sit there, or if I deeply just acknowledge that, she won't, or look at a photo and just think of, even like I got to the airport and I was thinking, right, mum loved holidays. And as I was in the queue for the airport, I'm thinking how, like, literally my mind's gone to, wow, like what she would have done in that moment. And I pictured her with this bag that she had, and all the goodies like raisins and sweets and all that in this bag that she'd take onto the flights. And just that's got me upset, because it was like a real kind of
Yeah.
memory.
Mm.
um so yeah, that's kind of when I do get feel most sad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. And it's sometimes those triggers, they come, and they're you go through, or I certainly did, you go through times of where you have these triggers and you get upset and you don't want them. You're almost like, I'll give you an example. I had a voicemail from my dad. I could never listen to it. And I always remember then ringing home to speak to my stepmom. And if it was like three rings or something, I would panic and hang up because she kept his voice on the answer phone. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I can't hear it. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. Whereas
yeah.
now, well, actually, as well, a few months ago, I found out that my dad had a YouTube channel, which is absolutely buzzing, bearing in mind he died in 2012. I will
Yeah,
watch it because I'm listening to him like talking to the dog and going out for a walk and
yeah,
stuff. And I want to hear it. But again, I
yeah,
guess that, well, certainly for me, that's something that came with time for sure. Not easy
yeah.
at the beginning whatsoever. Um, And then you said obviously you were super
Wait,
close. So
sorry, he had a YouTube channel.
yeah, how good is that?
That's
And
brilliant.
so not only did my dad have a YouTube channel, like I say, bearing in mind he died in 2012, he had a
Yeah.
YouTube channel and it was mainly of his dog Barney, but it would have text on it. He'd have like text coming up
Oh, a little
on the top of
creative
it.
genius.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And it was hit, and my dad's very, very London. And you know, there's one of these videos where Barney the dog had got the toilet roll and he's like, bloody hell, Barney, what are you doing that for? You know, and Barney's just sitting there all cute. But yeah, my dad was incredibly advanced. He built his own website. It was something that he told everyone, so everyone needed to know.
What a
Yeah,
man.
yeah, what lad? I was going to say you've mentioned obviously you were super close to your mum, obviously mummy's little boy, as it were. What about your relationship with your dad before and after? Were your parents together? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, my dad's a great man. He, you know, I mean, my relationship with him is very, very good. I mean, I played football at quite a high level from a young age, and he would, take me wherever and whenever to all games. Not just me, but my sister and brother. He had a real pride in, the Bellman family gene in our success. But yeah, no, it was just that mum and dad had a very good relationship as well. Like he would take her wherever in the country, wherever in the world, even to get the best
Nice.
treatment. If it cost X, Y, and Z, and he would make sure it happened. And we
Yeah.
put on fundraisers to like raise money, and yeah, it was just all about making sure she lived as long as possible and the best quality of life as possible. I'm saying
Was
quite a lot. Like,
yeah,
don't usually
but
do
it's
that.
it's a very David Beckham thing, isn't it? So we all have our little nuances.
Yeah.
My one was obviously. I used to say obviously a lot, and I'm like, that's not obvious to you. We've never met, like, so I had to try and like get myself out of that.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? You've totally thrown me now with your old David Beckham's. Didn't he look great at the football yesterday, Bex? Oh, unbelievable!
Oh,
What a
good
guy.
old Bex. Yeah, he's a beautiful man.
And Tom Cruise, Bex and Tom Cruise, absolutely loving life at
Yeah,
Wembley.
I was like, what's Crazy Boy doing there? He's probably never watched football in his life.
But what was great was, I don't know if you saw, he was at Wimbledon as well. So he's
Yeah,
then
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
was at Wimbledon and then he's just hot-footed it across town and gone up to Wembley to watch the game, of which we
I was
shall not
actually
speak.
there at Wembley yesterday.
You were not?
I didn't get tickets to the game, but I've gone to Wembley before the game.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was just like me and like my mates. We just went there, and the atmosphere was just amazing,
Was it?
electric. Yeah, it was. I was actually so gutted because had we won, like I reckon we were all gone to Piccadilly, and like town would have been insane. Like probably would have been the best day of my life, minus my bar mitzvah. But you know, yeah. But it was a big shame. But yeah.
It was a big shame. They really did us proud. I mean, I'm not even going to go to town on obviously what's happened since, because I think it's absolutely appalling what's happened to those three lads. But the team
Yeah.
and good old Gareth, he did it. He did the country proud, and it's certainly what we needed. That's for sure. Right, back to dead parents, Joe. Enough about the football. I was going to ask about. Okay, let's go back to obviously your mum passed away, so it's you, your dad, your older brother, your younger sister.
Younger brother,
Um,
younger brother.
I beg your pardon. So, you are the eldest of all of you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay. Fine. So right, that's definitely then sat on your shoulders afterwards, then, hasn't it?
Yeah.
What kind of, you said you went through a phase of being like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, as everyone does. You shrug your shoulders. I'm absolutely fine. What got you through that, and what were there any, I guess, dark times?
Yeah, I mean, I think once when I was at uni, I tried to really displace a lot of my feelings, but definitely having good mates around me was quite a good source of yeah, it definitely helped me. But you know what? The timing of everything was just so appalling. Like as soon as So mum passed October 2019, and I went back to uni. Finished off last term. Towards the end of that term, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to defer. And that year, 2020, I was going to go traveling, or just try and not find myself, because I don't need to find myself, but just kind of, right, this has happened, and kind of make an experience of it. But then obviously COVID happened like 3 months later, which was
Mm.
incredibly difficult, because when you have four grieving people in a house, um, locked in a house together, it's very
Oh God,
difficult,
yeah.
because even though it was March when this lockdown came into play, it was almost like the grief was kind of revolutionized, or it started again, because from October to January or February, it was like a different kind of grief. Like, we all went our different ways and kind of got on with our lives, and
Mm.
then we were forced to kind of, in a good way, like, it had some positives, we were forced to really discuss what had happened, but that also brought with it a lot of difficulties. He's done it again.
What do you care to elaborate on some of those difficulties? What do you mean?
Yeah, so it's just like, I think with any family, not everyone responds to things. I mean, even grief in general, people respond to grief very differently,
Mm.
and in the family even more so. And I think initially it was very hard to comprehend why we were all reacting differently to a stimulus that was the same.
Mm.
But
Great
it
use of the word
that
stimulus.
I kind of do that. I really put in words that just
You
shouldn't
can
really
tell
be
you
in
study
places.
economics. Economics, is it?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it was definitely a lot of, yeah, it was a lot of hardship, and like, I would say dinner times were incredibly incredibly awkward. Like, we
Oh,
would,
really?
yeah, because during lockdown we kind of all, it was really bad, to be honest. We'd all go in our rooms, and like, there would be just, I think, whenever my brother saw me, or whenever I saw my sister, we just nearly swallowed on some sweets. That was terrible. Um, but
I'm not even going to edit that out. I'm going to
God,
throw you
I,
right under the bus for that.
they were Parma Violets. Literally, nearly went down my throat.
Hang on, you are voluntarily eating Parma Violets. That's disgusting.
Do you not like them?
No. Who likes Parma Violets? They come in that
This
bag
guy, this
and
guy
you
loves them.
you go with refreshers, you go with that funny like lollipop that you have to like grind into powder, and you have legitimately bought Parma Violets.
Indeed, I have. Yes,
See, and there was me thinking that
and
you
that's
and I are going to
probably
be best
why.
friends.
And that's probably why I nearly choked on it.
Yeah,
Karma.
karma for making awful life
Um,
choices. So sorry, when don't choke, because although I could do with the content, it would be really awkward.
Slap it on your TikTok page.
Can you imagine?
boy,
Here.
boy passes away in mid-interview.
Oh, how we laugh. And don't take the mickey out of my TikTok page. Thank you very much. So yeah, you were saying like when you bump into your brother or your sister, what
Yeah.
awkward exchanges on the landing or
No, it was just, there was like, yeah, like, there was no camaraderie. Like, we didn't like, at that point it didn't feel like a family, because it was so hard.
mm,
And I think when you need to confront it, and because we were so young, I think when you're older, and you lose someone, it's different, in the sense like, you have your own lives, and work, and then you can kind of deal with it in a different way. But because and we had that for a sense, because I was at uni, my brother, I guess, was at
yeah.
school, but like A level, so he was working. But as soon as we were forced, because we were kind of forced into a house together, and if you were forced in that confined space, it's definitely a lot of things, like, there's going to be a lot of tension, and normally that wouldn't happen, but because of what the loss itself, there was all this friction, and like, it was really quite hard. But because of that difficulty, what's that phrase, like, when you can't get a diamond out of like pressure, or I don't even know, but
Oh yeah, don't
when
test me on things like that.
but it was something like, because that happened, we had to get to where we are now, like as a family, and we had to have those arguments and fights,
Mm-mm.
and and they were bad fights. They weren't good, but we needed to have them to kind of air things out, and really just, yeah, continue. Because when you go from, a family of five to a family of four, it's it's not just a number. For some people, oh, it's so sad, but like with that person, there's so much togetherness. You go from just having that extra person, that togetherness. Like, what I found is, mum would kind of be a mediator almost. And
Mm.
you know when there's now four, it's almost like, it could be someone's ganging up on someone, or it really can feel like, I definitely think my brother said that a few times, like, well, why are you ganging up on me? But that wasn't necessarily the case. It was just because it may have seemed like that, because myself and my dad and my brother might have felt one way, but because Ben didn't have that support from mom, or whatever,
Mm-mm.
it could feel like that. And so I definitely felt there was that difficulty as well, that it is. I've actually never spoken about that, but I think it does make a really big difference when, from going from two parents to one parent, and almost whatever side that one parent, kind of chooses. It's like, well, why are you favoriting that child?
Yeah.
But like, it's not the case, but because, there's only that one figure, it kind of looks that way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess that, I mean, that's obviously the same when it comes to separation or divorce and such. But when
Yeah.
it's the loss of a parent, I mean, I don't know your family set up in that terms, but then it's just your dad is forced into being a single parent through no obviously choice of his own, and then I guess he's obviously just constantly trying to do the right thing by the three of you,
Yeah.
which is hard enough as a parent anyway, let alone without the support of, as you say, they had an amazing relationship. So they were clearly a great team together. And now he's lost that. So that's one thing that, I can't even, is it empathize or sympathize? One of those words is like, not only has he lost the love of his life, he's having to now look after his three children, still be a stand-up parent, and make sure that you guys are okay through your grief
Yeah.
whilst looking after his grief. Like
Yeah.
it must be so tough. Is he doing all right? Is everyone doing
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing well. I mean, he's gone through a few, I think you would call it midlife purchases, that
right? What's he
mum
got?
would never.
Convertible Porsche.
No, not even. He got a really nice car though. He got it's like a vintage Mercedes. It's like 1957 or six. Mercedes. I
Nice,
really, but
lovely.
his now his fourth child. Like, I think he pays a lot more attention to this car than he does us. But yeah, but I think the purchases that mum probably wouldn't have approved, but
Aha.
he's like,
He's gone out and got that. Has he met anyone else?
um, no, like, I think, there might be, I think he wants to, but I don't think that's just quite yet. He's found the person.
And how would you feel about that?
I think it's definitely a difficult one. I think, my brother, sister, and I have definitely spoken about it, and
All right.
it's it. I think it's just is very is a hard one, I guess, to accept, because you kind of almost feel like it's, you know cheating in a way, but obviously it's not. Um, but that's how, like, you kind of perceive it, and it's hard to, like, kind of break out of that mindset. But then you've got to remember
Mm.
that he doesn't love her any less. It's just a different, you know stage in your life, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a woman, and I'm gonna forget her name, but she did a TED talk, and she was speaking about the fact that her husband died, and she's gone on to, get married again and have children with this new man. And she said that doesn't mean I don't love my husband who passed away. It's just your
Is
grief
that the person who
changes.
wrote, option B?
Oh, I don't know.
Sheryl Sandberg. She
Oh no, it's not. Her name is like something McKinnery or. I really should be well prepared, shouldn't I? What's example B? Example B, did you just say?
Option B, I think it's
Option
called.
B, what's that?
It's it's a book by this. I think I might be incorrect, but I think it was the one of the CFO of like Facebook or whatever. Her name's like Sheryl Sandberg, I
Oh yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah.
And she yeah, she just wrote this book about losing her husband, and yeah, it's just a really it's good, very good book that I read quite early on. So I probably couldn't quote you on it now,
No, I
but
know what you
I
mean.
just
Here we go. Option B, Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant facing adversity, building resilience, and finding joy.
yeah, that's the one.
And you found that
Yeah,
helpful. Did you read a lot of books or after losing your mum?
yeah, I am a big reader. So I did. I definitely ventured in the grief section of the library, but it's definitely not a fun read. But you kind of like, yeah, there's definitely a good few books that I benefited from, but I think with anything you can't like focus solely on, you know, reading for your recovery, because then you'll kind of never be not never be satisfied, but you know, you almost need to take the action yourself. Like I always find this, like with self-help books, for example, like they're almost a drug in a way, because you feel like you need them to feel good, so you
Okay.
continuously read all these books thinking, and then you like it like reinforces all these feelings like, oh, I'm going to do that, I need to get another book. But unless you actually actively, you know, take that step yourself, which is hard, but you know, you don't get that step by reading. So I don't you know, continuously read about grief, because you know, it's like I feel like I'll get stuck in a continuous cycle of never really being satisfied. So I kind of try and, I don't want to say limit, because you know, this, I know some people really probably will benefit from it, but for myself it's about, you know, finding something that helps you and then kind of working on it yourself, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Like not being dependent on it. I don't know if you did you speak to a counselor or a therapist or anything after your mum
Y-
died?
yeah, like I did have a good chat. There's a really good charity, Grief Encounter in the UK.
Okay.
um and I they basically they're tailored towards like young bereavement and like speaking to like young people when they lose someone. um and they, yeah, so I did speak to people there for a bit. um it got a bit weird with lockdown, to be honest, because like again, speaking like to a therapist over Zoom is just quite uh yeah, it's just a bit difficult, because you know, you're in your room and you know, it's like goes on the TV and then you're like distracted, and then like, oh, here I am, this is shit, like you kind of forget almost where you are. So that, yeah, but no, I think therapy is definitely a good step for many people. And I'm an advocate for that, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say the same as the books really then is because I when I was seeing a therapist, I then thought, well, hang on, yeah, I don't want to keep doing this every Tuesday, 9 o'clock in the evening, because then I thought, what if I do become dependent on her? And it's really interesting that you use like the analogy or comparison, if you like, to it being a drug. You don't want to be dependent
Yeah,
on a person. You need to be
yeah,
able to survive on your own. Um, so I didn't go cold turkey. I did have to wean myself off her, but
yeah,
and every now and again, like touching in with her and everything. So that's really interesting about the books, which then leads me nicely into your podcast. So tell me all about
yeah.
your podcast. Like, why did you start it?
So, like I said before, when the loss first happened, I searched on the internet what to do when you lose someone, and when I did that, I realized this is just not helpful for someone my age. There were so many things like, you know, from like a scientific background, like, you know, you might experience anger, and I was like, I don't really want to read this. Like, this is not making me feel any better. So I thought, if I'm in that situation, then there must be, other university students, other young people, in school looking at these articles thinking this is absolute like waz. Like this is just not. I've said waz. I don't even know that's a word, but
It's fine. It's proper English. It's fine.
waz. um, I did go to a good school, promise, but yeah. So I just kind of felt I need to do something to, because my mom was all about helping people, and that's something I want to continue her legacy. So I started this. My first episode was quite. Do you know what? It actually started with me doing poetry, and I read my poetry. I put it on YouTube, and it did really really well. It got picked up by like the BBC. I spoke on the BBC, did my piece, and after that, I was just like people were like, oh wow, you that was so amazing. And someone reached out to me. The first guest, her name's Kim, and she was like, we should do something together. So it didn't actually start with a podcast. It kind of started, but it transitioned into that route. And then like after that first conversation, which also did very well, I was just like, yeah, like this is something that can help so many people. So I, with my limited experience in the podcasting world, I had a lot of help putting things together. But yeah, like it's been something I just I love doing it. I love sitting down with someone and just chatting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to get this wrong, aren't I? Living with loss. No, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah,
And how many
and it's
episodes in are you?
so I've done about 22, and they're not all loss based. So most, I think 17, 18 are loss based, but I've spoken to people about having cancer, or someone had alopecia, or just difficult things. But for me it's
Mm.
about talking to young people and really showing that it's okay to have these thoughts and feelings, and just like talk about it, because talking is therapy.
It really is. Yeah. Wow, that's a quote for my Instagram. Thanks
I
very
know, as soon
much.
as I've said that, I just thought, right, that is absolutely banging. That is amazing.
And you said it right into the microphone. You were like, talking is therapy. Yes. And it's going to be there on my Instagram, Joe Bellman, episode
With his
30.
face as well,
With that face, with his TikTok
freshly
hair.
shaven before the episode as well.
Me
So
too. Um, I ask all of my guests for a podcast or an Instagram recommendation. And I know you've already recommended a book, which is really good. And of course, we've got your podcast, which I am going to link in the episode notes as well. But
fantastic.
what have you got for me? And it doesn't have to be grief or mental health related. Fine if it is, or just something that you like.
So it's probably isn't it's not really mental health related, but I so I do like to listen to quite a few podcasts. One of them is, I'm gonna forget his name actually. I'm gonna search off on my phone, but
Search it.
it's so there's a few. I quite like business related podcasts that are kind of good for like your mindset.
Okay.
Um,
Jay Shetty type stuff.
Yeah, Jay. Oh, to be fair, I do like. I was going to say from a page, I do like Jay Shetty. I like his book, Think Like a Monk. That he's. I don't know if you've seen that, but yeah. So yeah. So a few podcasts I like. Obviously, Joe Rogan. I think.
Yeah.
That's it from just the variety, and he's just a really unbelievable host. I think he's just a very from as a podcaster as well. Kind of helped me like kind of ish navigate, because like if you look at the first episodes I've done, it was a bit waffly, and like although very good, because I'm pretty good. No, I'm joking,
Yeah.
but
Listen,
no,
you've got to back yourself, constantly back yourself.
just I think it was lack of direction, but
Yeah.
yeah, he is good. But another one is, I don't know if you've heard of, his name's Jack Mate. He's like a YouTuber, and he has like this happy hour podcast.
Yeah.
Funny guy, just yeah, I'm waffling, but I kind of I don't I listen to podcasts a fair bit, to be honest.
Yeah, no,
What about yourself?
Jack Mate was really funny because a friend of mine sent me an actual specific episode of Jack Mate's podcast where he was talking to basically an ex undercover police officer, like proper, like, oh, we did this in the 60s or whatever. Anyway, so I listened to that, and I didn't get into my car. Well, I was in my car. I picked up my nephew who's 11, and it was up on my Apple CarPlay thing, and he was like, you know who Jack Mate is? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just listening to a podcast. And he was like, how come you listening to Jack Mate? Like, as if I couldn't be cool enough to like listen to Jack Mate. And I was like, who is he? And he was like, he's a YouTuber. And I'm like, right, calm yourself.
Oh, yeah, relax.
Like, but yeah, so and it's really annoying because I listened to that one episode, and now Spotify this is why I don't like listening to podcasts on Spotify. I'm very much a music for Spotify, podcasts on Apple.
Oh, really?
Sorry, Android people, because it's just obsessed with telling me to keep on listening to. You listened to Jack Mate's Happy Hour a year ago, so listen to this all the time.
Yeah.
And my podcast, it's so funny when I interview podcasters because I've become the interviewee. My podcasts are I listen a lot to Danny Wallace. He's on Radio X. He has a show on Radio X on a Sunday, and I've listened to Danny Wallace for years and years in his audiobooks. He's really good. He's so quintessentially English about things, and then his podcast is really good. And I've actually, because of a recommendation from a podcast guest, I've got back into My Dad Wrote a Porno, which I haven't listened to for like 3 years. Have you listened to it?
I haven't actually listened to it, but I know I've seen it on the Spotify recommended. So
yeah, maybe we should. Very, very funny. It's so stupid. It's very funny. And but my absolute favorite podcast at the moment it's a podcast called Friends
Living with
Friends.
Lost podcast. Oh,
it's the Living with Lost podcast. I'll edit that out. My absolute favorite podcast is I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Living with Loss by a guy called Joe Bellman. It's all right.
I think so. I've heard it's good, to be honest.
No, it's a podcast called Friends with Friends. I love the TV show Friends. I'm wearing a T-shirt that says "Gun would be perfection" if you're a Friends fan. And they basically, people choose their favorite episode of Friends and they just talk through it. And it's so simple, and I just love it so much. So yeah, I like little things like that. Don't ask me any more questions, all right? It's not your podcast. If you want to invite me onto your podcast, that's a different thing. All right, I'm probably too old. I've crossed over the barrier and I'm now not allowed onto the Living with Lost podcast. Joe, thanks so much. I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I what you're doing like within the grief community and for people of a young age who've lost anyone or anything. I just think you're doing good things. So I am a fan of your work, and I want you to carry on doing good things. Give my love to everyone, and
will do.
If I'm ever allowed to enter my home country, I'll let you know if I'm coming into London, and we'll go out for a beer.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Can't wait.
All right, my love. Take care. I'll see you soon.
I'll speak to you later. See you later.
See you. Bye.
Said that twice.
See you.